morning. Wake up, Patriots. Good morning to the beautiful Kristin Davis. Welcome back to Trump Tuesday.
Good morning, Karyn, and good morning, everyone. I haven't gotten into the chat yet because I'm trying to figure out, my headphone situation. So I thought everything was great this morning, and then 3 minutes ago, my headphones stopped working. So
it is what it is, and I'm sitting over here as we're having the audio issues. And what I did is I immediately jumped in the chat. So I want to say thank you to Universa, first and foremost, for saying that this is their favorite chat in the morning, Wake Up Patriots, with the Ken heads in the chat. And that could not make me happier today. I don't know who jumped on locals this morning. I jumped in locals and Mr. Henry was there, and he was talking quite a bit about a dinner that he had last night, making some speculations about the VP pick, Kristin.
Oh, and what were his speculations?
Well, he actually said that he had dinner with some friends that, are also pretty close to President Trump, and that they were discussing J.D. Vance last night and just the impact that J.D. Vance has because of the relationship with Don Jr. and him being a little bit younger and a little bit fresher. And I just kept going back to being on the ground in East Palestine with Donald Trump and also J.D. Vance. So, maybe there's something there. And I noticed Deborah Lynn immediately went into the chat at the end and said, Karyn, who's your pick? And it cut her off just as she asked me the question. So I'm not going to say right now, but maybe I will say what I think by the end of the show. I'll keep everybody hanging. And we have some stuff to definitely stick with us because today we have Andrew Phipps coming up. Of course, Pastor Phipps, always great on a Trump Tuesday. I also want to talk a lot about this debate, Kristin, and what we're going to expect on Thursday. And I'm having a lot of flashbacks to 2016.
Sorry, I'm having so many technical problems.
No,
today.
I will just keep talking. I will talk to the chat. You sit back and relax. But I don't know, I spent a good portion of my day yesterday, and I don't want to get into why, but there were parts of my day yesterday that were ironic, amusing, crazy, and a little nuts, I might say. And I don't know who remembers, but there was a presidential candidate back in 2016 called D's Nuts. So I want to see what the chat says about this. But this was sort of a standing joke on our former morning show that I try, not to mention here, although it comes up because that's what we did before. But on that former network, there was a standing joke that I think, as I recall, was perpetuated by our chat about D's Nuts and this candidate. And it just became a standing joke on the show. There were Nerf guns involved. There was all sorts of fun that we had. And every morning our chat went crazy over D's Nuts. So do we bring back D's Nuts? Is there a candidate for 2024 that really can compare? You have to ask yourselves these questions because there are a lot of parallels to what's happening right now that you can compare to 2016. And I'm not just talking about the debate coming up and similarities that Democrats are all the same. And I'll get into the Nancy Pelosi and I guess David and the Hammer stories back. So that's another headline from this morning. But back in 2016, D's Nuts had 9% of the poll. Do you know who had 9% of the poll yesterday? Any guesses, Kristin? I bet you know.
No, because I feel like the polls are skewed. You're probably going to say RFK.
I am, and they are. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I'll get into the New York Times, but the Atlanta Journal-Constitution actually said yesterday in positive news that Donald Trump is up 5 points. And they also said that RFK has 9%. So 9% came up again. And I thought that was a little bit ironic. And this D's Nuts character, this was a 15-year-old kid named Brady Olson. And you know me, of course, I got to go down the rabbit hole. I'm thinking to myself, do we have him on the show? Where do we go with this? And I guess he stepped away from politics, which is probably maybe a good decision, especially based on the whole comedic humor in this child running. But it did prove a really valid point. It proved that people were not putting up with the Democrat shenanigans anymore. And if D's Nuts taught us anything, I think that's what it taught us. Right?
I love this 15-year-old for being so creative. I think we bring back D's Nuts. What does the chat think?
Well,
I'm a
Denise
fan.
says RFK is D's nuts. So there are definitely some comparisons there that you could make, not just the 9%. And, Aunt Jana saying the Fox poll is fake for sure, just like Arizona in 2020. And I want to say that the New York Times, just a few minutes before we came on air, put out a headline, and they're announcing their poll right now, which has President Trump and Biden actually tied at 46%. And again, I have to look at, in Hebrew, we look at things called gematria, which is ancient math that, is translated into Hebrew text. And I keep thinking to myself, there's a lot of sort of signs here in these numbers. 46, Biden's 46 president. We've got them neck and neck, 46, New York Times reporting, which we know is wrong because they're never right. But, they have Biden leading in their projection for electoral votes. And it seems pretty unbelievable that they would make that kind of prediction, but it's not surprising in today's, leftist media.
You know where I like to go for some more accurate predictions are some of these sites where people are actively trading. They're placing bets, right? Polymarket, there's Predictit. I think Polymarket tends to be the most accurate. I'm on there now, and it has 22 million bet on Donald Trump, 20 million on Joe Biden, and the odds are 59% Trump, 34% Biden. I don't know if we can hold this up to the screen.
Amazing. Yeah, I
we
see
can
it.
see that. Michelle Obama coming in at 2%. Gavin Newsom also coming in 2%. Kamala Harris 1%, and Bobby Kennedy only at 1%. And I prefer these. So far, 183 million has been bet on all of these candidates. And I prefer this because when people, the average person or whomever is putting their money where their mouth is, I think it's more accurate than a corporation who has a vested interest in putting out certain polling numbers. So
yeah,
I prefer
absolutely.
some of these
vested
markets.
interest.
Yeah,
it goes back, you say all the time, Kristen, you're the money girl. You're always about follow the money. Look at where the funding's coming from. It's so evident when you look at the New York Times and you look at just the things that CNN puts out. And I'm looking for the article that I had this morning, but CNN put out this whole expert piece, because of course they have an expert piece on the value of Trump's assets and his businesses. And this was actually, this piece that they did not call an opinion piece, I might add, was actually the opinion of a LinkedIn professional that happens to also be a big Biden donor. So I'm like, who paid for this? Is it pay to play? Like, what is this? And why is this not strictly out there as an opinion piece when all this is this person who's a Democrat donor giving their opinion in the New York Times? So sometimes things are pretty transparent. They're right in front of us, Kristen.
I prefer to take my facts from people with experience, like Joe Hoft, who we had on last week, who spent 10 years as a high level auditor. So he's looking at things from that perspective, and he can give you an assessment, an auditing perspective of, and he's done voting machines and he's done all these things in his life. When somebody else comes out and says, I haven't, here's my analysis on this, but what's your background? Like, how many times have you done this? Have you done this professionally? Do you, and I think that's where it's so misleading for the public, is that the public
and who are
says,
you donating
this
to?
is an expert, but do we really look back and see, like, well, what are they an expert in? This guy could be, a real estate professional who's giving an analysis on something that's completely unrelated to his area of expertise.
Yeah, I just, nothing ever shocks me anymore. It really doesn't, especially living in the rabbit hole. And tomorrow is Wonderland Wednesday, so stay tuned for that. We got a lot that we're going to cover tomorrow, too. Let me know when we have Andrew Phipps on the line. I don't know if he's sitting and waiting.
And Reading. I will add him right now.
Amazing. You want to add him? I was going to get to Jesus Calling, so nobody better than to read it with than Andrew Phipps. Welcome, Pastor Phipps.
Oh, you're muted, Pastor Phipps.
He's muted. He's got to unmute himself. We can't hear you.
Let me go. Can you hear me now?
We can.
Good
morning.
Well, thank you for allowing me to be on, and I appreciate your efforts here as we try to wake up some patriots. And I don't believe for a moment that Biden and President Trump are tied. When a person can pull the numbers that Donald Trump can pull in stadiums everywhere, even in the blue states, I don't think that the polls that would indicate that it's anywhere close. The people that I see and hear from, maybe I have a very selective group, but most people are very fed up. They are through with all the nonsense. It's absolutely, Warren Harding introduced a phrase in the 1920 election. He called it, said, return to normalcy. Some people say normalcy is not in the actual vocabulary, but people tried to understand what he was talking about. We need to get back to where the abnormal is shunned, where we try to get back just to common sense. I've lived long enough to know that common sense used to be germane to the Democrat Party. People like Harry Truman and some of those people, they didn't believe in this nonsense of a socialized planned economy, shutting down our borders and killing our unborn and calling all that we had inherited as a free nation nonsense. These people are completely nuts. I mean, I don't know how to describe it. I wish I could look at the thesaurus and find a better word, but the only one that comes up to me is that when I see AOC and these people dancing around like they've been taking drugs or something, it's beyond me. Listen, I grew up in a different culture. I've told folks, and I don't mean to go long here, but I grew up in a culture where grass was something we mowed, Coke was something we drank, aides were the people that worked in the principal's office, and coming out of the closet meant we'd been playing hide and go seek.
Simpler times, and we all really want to get back there. And AOC is absolutely deranged. I think we can all agree on that. Anybody watching her has to say, what is wrong with this girl? And you say girl because she behaves like a child. And meanwhile, we make a lot of jokes on the show. I love that you brought up nuts, because we were talking about D's nuts before you came on in this 2016 presidential candidate. But the world has gone D's nuts. It's completely crazy. And AOC reminds me, Kristin, you were talking about how you grew up, Andrew. She reminds me of one of these girls that would show up at the skating rink in the 80s when I was a kid and tell me that she was going to beat me up in the bathroom for absolutely no reason besides the fact that she didn't like that I was smiling or the way that I looked.
Well, we've been trying to, some have at least been trying to replace, the automatic or intelligence AI. They're trying to replace it with natural stupidity. And so consequently, Judge Learned Hand, I think of this with Miss Karyn as we talk.
Yeah.
Judge Learned Hand, they call his name Learned. He said this. He said, when liberty lies in the hearts of men and women, it needs no law, no constitution to keep it. When it dies there, no law, no constitution can save it. And I'm of the belief that our people, surely to goodness, by the help of the good Lord, will have enough common sense to know that we don't want to replace American exceptionalism with American apologetics. We don't want to tell people that what the brave men did there at Normandy as they scaled the cliffs there, and 240 went up those cliffs and only 90 survived. Are we going to tell their descendants, the brave men that just recently, there's only a handful left, are we going to tell these people that all they did was in vain, that they died? Many, when they stepped out into the sea there, the weight of the carbines and all that was upon them that drowned right there in the water. Are we going to tell these people that America is no longer, that we're going to reward illegals. And I hear they're wanting to fuss with using the word illegal. Illegal immigrants coming here and telling these people that, look, we can house and take care of you, but many of our veterans we're going to leave alone because we've got a new culture. I don't mean to go long, Karyn, but thank you for allowing me.
No, I think everybody is absolutely enjoying the rant. And what I got out of that, the last part especially, Pastor Phipps, is that actions speak louder than words. And they're showing us through actions exactly what they're doing in this push towards socialism and taking American values out of this country and taking God out of this country. And I think it's a really good time. I'm going to read Jesus Calling real quick because I know the chat has been waiting for it. And I love that the two of you are both here with me as I read this today. It's a good one and it's a short one. So open your hands and your heart to receive this day as a precious gift for me. I begin each day with a sunrise, announcing my radiant presence. By the time you rise from your bed, I have already prepared the way before you go. I eagerly await your first conscious thought. I rejoice when you glance my way. Bring me the gift of thanksgiving, which opens your heart to rich communion with me, because I am God, from which all blessings flow, and thankfulness is the best way to draw near to me. Sing praise songs to me and tell me of my wondrous works. Remember that I take great delight in you. I rejoice over you with singing. Isn't that beautiful?
It is beautiful. Well, when I think that God created man and then he became a man so that men could become the sons of God. Isn't that wonderful? We're the only, as far as I know, religion that says that our Savior died, that he was buried, and that he rose. You know, this is what really separates us. We have a risen Savior, and we still believe there's hope for our country. The God of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. And I know a lot of the pundits and a lot of people may think that they're going to have the final word, but we have one in the heavens who is sovereign. And, you know, Benjamin Franklin at the Constitutional Convention said this. He said, "The longer I live, the more of a truth I perceive, that if a sparrow cannot fall to the ground without his notice, how can empires rise without his aid?"
Wow, that's amazing. And, you know, we wouldn't have be where we are. You know, there was a time in this country, Chris, and it was in God we trust. And yet we're here at such a time where there's such mistrust. And maybe, you know, Pastor Phipps really summed that up in the way that believing in God is believing in miracles. And we're going to need a miracle to pull this out in 2024, aren't we?
Well, I think so. But by the same token, you know, I am glad that President Trump has also brought into the dialogue that we're a Christian nation and that we're fighting for Christian principles. The Christian principles are these, that we love one another, the idea that we don't take things, we have some commandments other than the 10 commandments, and those are still, as far as moral turpitude, you know, we are taught basic principles, the love of forgiveness, the love of the Savior. Also, we have a love of country. So I feel like that we're going to have victory this coming November. I'm planning, Karyn, you might be interested in this. I'm planning, not that I am an answer or a solution. I don't think that. I'm not an expert, but we're going to have some rallies in different parts, New England, through other areas. We're going to do some faith, family, freedom rallies. We're going to try to help people realize the seriousness of the moment. This is as serious as Concord 1775, when Henry Wadsworth Longfellow wrote that great poem about "Here once them battle farmers stood and fired the shot heard round the world." The shot we need to fire this fall, and I'm not talking about military or actual armaments, but it ought to be one of resounding victory for the principles of liberty, secure borders, the idea of individual rights, free speech, and freedom of religion.
Freedom of religion. That's a great way to sum it up. And I know you're in a hurry today, and I don't want to keep you because I know you have a lot of important things to do and places to go. So we're going to reconnect with you and have you on again in the next few weeks. But I was hoping you could sum it up for all of us and maybe tell our chat, because they're asking, who is your VP pick, Pastor Phipps?
Well, obviously, there are very many have a lot of wonderful attributes. I kind of think myself, I'm just thinking for myself, I think Senator Tim Scott would do a lot. He was brought up by, I believe, a single parent. He was had a very poor financial background, but I think he had a loving mother and others that nurtured him, and he has common sense. Not only that, but he's a man of faith. He practices what he preaches, and I think that the demographics would be that he would bring a lot, I think, to the minority community, and I think that he's very passionate. People see him as being real, and I think he is real. I have a lot of friends in South Carolina. I speak in that state a lot. And people down there, they love Tim Scott. He will come to their churches and actually give sermons sometimes for these men. And they love him. And so I know there are others, Senator Rubio and maybe J.D. Vance, and I don't know, maybe there's a lady or somebody in there, but President Trump, I guess, is going to tell us Thursday night. But my preference right now, I would think Senator Tim Scott would fit the bill quite well.
Amazing. I love that. A lot of people like your predictions, Pastor Phipps, and we always love to have you on. Thank you for joining us, and we're going to have you back soon. I hope you have a great day.
Thank you for being a wonderful friend. I appreciate it more than I can tell you.
You're a great friend, too. Always good to have you. Kristin, always good to start off Trump Tuesday, even though, Pastor Phipps can be a little bit long-winded. And I did try to ask him a couple questions there, but he had a lot to say today.
It's okay. I love him. I thought he looks great in his suit. I love a man in a suit that comes on here. I thought it was, a beautiful segment. Happy to have him. Maybe he can't see that I'm here. I don't know.
He dressed for the occasion. He's always bringing it. It couldn't be any better. He mentioned rallies, and I wanted to say there was an article this morning that I guess there's going to be a Virginia rally. I didn't catch the date, but you might want to look that one up. And, he'll be on stage with Youngkin. So a lot of people wondering how that's going to go as well. And, back to this Thursday debate, it's really having a lot of 2016 vibes. Are we better off? Are we worse off? A lot of us are worse off. We have a great sponsor that's helping us in our times of need. And I want to give them a quick shout out. We've got Done With Debt. And Done With Debt actually can help you negotiate and fix some of your debt problems, not just go ahead and take out a loan and get yourself into a situation where you're taking on more, but give you financial freedom by alleviating your stress and coming up with a customized plan to help you get out of debt. So go to donewithdebt.com. That's donewithdebt.com. It's select VNN, which is a Vigilant News Network. You select that at checkout, donewithdebt.com. So don't live paycheck to paycheck. It's really hard in the Biden economy. We're all struggling a little bit, but Done With Debt can help you get through. So great shout out to a great sponsor. And a lot of people need that right now, Kristin.
I mean, in my early 20s, I certainly needed something like that, and it didn't exist back then. And, I was a young kid who kind of screwed up my credit and did a bunch of things, and I had no idea what to do. It would have been great to have something like this where I could have gotten some guidance. So I'm thankful that we have these services now.
And I'm laughing to myself only because yesterday, I had somebody, and the D's Nuts thing was just a part of my day yesterday. And I definitely want to share with you guys because, my favorite part of coming on the show is interacting with our chat and, getting to know them and sharing my life, in small part with them and getting support from them. And I hope that I do the same and I reciprocate. But yesterday, this whole D's nuts thing came up, and somebody was trying to make it as if this was in some way derogatory. And I said, this is based on, a joke on the show and a presidential candidate. Like, what are you talking about? Like, this was 2016. We lived in a D's nuts world, and we still are. But this person asked me about why I didn't judge somebody else on their past. And I thought that was a really interesting question. Like, here I am coming into a situation with somebody who also has a past, whether it's you or anybody else, and I'm not going to single anybody out. But no, I don't ask anybody questions. I base my opinion of them on how they treat me and how I witness them treat others. I don't make assumptions based on something that I've read in a newspaper. I don't make assumptions about you as my friend and about choices that you make to get by in your life. I look at you, you're sitting here talking about your 20s, and I'm saying to myself, yeah, you might have made some choices that weren't the best and paid a price for them. But had you not had those struggles, would you be the entrepreneur that you are today? Would you have turned to really hustling? And again, maybe not hustling in the right direction all the time, but would you be the person? Don't the experiences that you have and the mistakes that you make, isn't that what God gives you in order to shape you and change your perspective on how you move through life? Like, isn't that all part of the journey, Kristin?
I certainly hope so, because I've made some horribly colossal mistakes. I've been to prison. I've done all of these things. I spent 1.5 years in prison. And, I think back to that time, and I needed to go there. I needed to go there. If I hadn't have gone to prison, I wouldn't have my son. I wouldn't have a better relationship with God. I wouldn't have learned all of these valuable lessons. And I've done all of these things. Some of them I'm not proud of. Some of them I am proud of, and society says I'm not supposed to be proud of them. And I've rebuilt my life. I have a successful business, and it's still used against me. Something I did 16 years ago is still used against me all the time, like all the time. As soon as someone decides they don't like me, maybe because I've called out a grift, I've called out a scam, I've put them in their place.
Which you do so well, I might add. You do that really, really well. You're really good at that.
Well, I just, it taught me to learn to walk with integrity, right? I had to do some things. I was dishonest. I was a criminal for a period of my life. And I lied to my family. I embarrassed them. And it taught me to be, brutally honest with myself about the things that I have done and take radical responsibility, and to be that with other people in my life. And so, I built a successful business where, I'm thankful that, these people like a Flynn and a Stone and, all of these people have trusted me. You and Ed have trusted me with their careers and their public messaging. And I did that by just being honest and doing a good job, but it's still also used against me all the time. And Pastor Craig Hagan once, if you don't know him, he's part of Pastors for Trump. He is also head of Rema Bible College and churches. He said to me at dinner one day, Kristin, Jesus picks the people who have been through the worst things, because those are the people he knows that will fight the hardest for him. He doesn't pick the guy who's never had any difficult experiences or never had any obstacles to overcome, because those guys aren't the fighters. It's those of us who have been through, screwed up our lives and had to claw our way back, through turmoil and depression and financial ruin and public ruin and all these things, that can then go out and say, but look at me now, and God did this, and God worked in my life, and it's my testimony that don't be like me, don't do the things I did. And we have these stories to share, and it was so nice for me personally to have someone point that out, that that I could be a better warrior for all things: Jesus, the country, my clients, my family, my kid, and I had to go through this to do that.
I'm absolutely loving the chat too, and it's moving so quick that I can't even really read it. But a lot of people are, really finding what you're saying relatable, because we've all been in a position where we've made mistakes, and being vulnerable and allowing people to see that you're human like them is supposed to be what brings us together. And I think truly in the heart and the soul, it is what brings us together. But at the same time, we have this environment where people just want to judge you and take shots at you, sometimes based on the way that you look, sometimes based just simply on the fact that you're female. I had a situation yesterday, and again, I don't want to give this too much credit or, give it too much attention, because a lot of it is just such BS that it's unbelievable. But in my position too, as a woman who some people might find slightly attractive, they're always going to make an accusation that I am sleeping with someone. This has been historical most of my life, Kristin, and, a good portion. And I say to myself, like, that's always going to be the go-to, isn't it? And it devalues me as a woman. It devalues women in general. And it's such a horrific thing that people will just go there. But it's a natural thing as well. And I can't walk through life pretending that people aren't going to make certain judgments that it's so obvious that they're going to make, wrong or not. You have to be, have your eyes open and be aware. And you said that you're good at spotting the grift. I can tell you that that's why we're such good friends and why we've worked together for so long, because you see through the bullshit. You see through it. I see through it. But that only comes from living life, from having bad experiences, from getting burned, and from watching people around you, sometimes people that you really, really care about, make stupid choices and mistakes, and maybe supporting them anyway, because down in their soul that they're a good person.
Well, and you know what the hard part of that is, and I think this is true in life, in politics, what we see now with the election cycle, is that sometimes the truth is really hard to take. It's uncomfortable. You have to reevaluate your views on things in order to accept it. And that's work, right? People don't want to do the work. And so once they have, a scapegoat, and that could be my past, your past, anybody's past, something they've done wrong. It's much easier to throw that out there. Like we see it with Trump, right? Oh, he's a racist. Oh, he's this, rather than actually saying, okay, you know what? My views here on this need to be reevaluated. And at least now I think we're at a place in time where maybe because of the economy and because people's budgets and all these other factors, that they're doing some of that work, right? Because before it's like, oh, Trump's a racist. He hates all Mexicans. He wants to build the wall. And nobody's actually looking into what that means, like what he's actually said, or why the wall is important, right? Nobody knows that, but now they know that because enough fentanyls came into this country and enough illegals, and it's made so much news, taking our money with, pay bailouts, government bailouts. So, but I think it just holds true with politics, with our life. Oh, here we have an excuse. We're just going to throw that out there and move on rather than adjusting our views. So,
D's nuts. That's all I have to say. D's nuts. And I have to say, loves Christ. I'm sorry if I offended anybody. I did say, instead of saying BS, I said the full word, which I normally don't do. But every once in a while, you have to use a little profanity. You got to get the point across. And it is, like I said, BS. It's absolute BS. But, that's the world we're living in. And, you got to be prepared, Kristin. So I want to talk about, you're talking about sort of the doom and gloom of all of this. And I don't want to focus on that for too long, because I want to get back to the D's nuts, because I have the end of my story. I'm going to share the end of my day with you because it's pretty funny. But prepare with VNN, prepare right now, because we are facing real dangers only real Americans are facing. You want to be a defender of truth. You want to be a freedom fighter. You know what's coming, and what's coming may not be good, and the government is not going to help you out. You want to be prepared. You want to have My Patriot supply. You want to have your food kit ready. It's a 4-week emergency food kit. The food is delicious. Chat talks about it all the time. 2,000 calories. It's 4-layer packaging. It's absolutely something that you're going to keep for your family. You might even use in this Biden economy because it's honestly cheaper than going to the grocery store right now. So you go to preparewithvnn.com. That's preparewithvnn, Vigilant News Network.com, and get yours today. They give a special discount for our viewers. So let's definitely get on over there and get that done. So yesterday, after my conversations that were ridiculous about D's nuts again and again and again, my son comes running in the house and he's frantic, my 18-year-old. And we have this little field out by our house, and my son likes to play golf and football, and he's got this group of kids in the neighborhood. They all play sports together. So he says, Mom, we have this animal. I don't know what it is, and it was drowning in the lake. A hawk dropped it in the water. I saw it happen, and I retrieved this baby animal, and it's on the picnic table. I need you to come right away. So I go out there, and there's a whole gaggle of children around this teeny, 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 tiny baby squirrel. And it's laying there, and it's on a towel, and the kids are trying to dry it off and keep it warm. And I immediately go into full-on wildlife rescue mom mode, and I start texting anybody I know who knows about wildlife. And I want to give a shout out to our congressional candidate here in my district, Megan Weinberger, because immediately when I texted her, she's got a farm. She's an amazing girl. I've known her long before politics. She's very, very philanthropic, really good individual in South Florida. And she has this farm, and I called her up and I said, you know anybody? And she said, I have a squirrel, lady. So I said, perfect, that's great. So I got the squirrel all set. I went over to Pet Supermarket. I got some formula. I want to see what the chat has to say about the squirrel. Have you seen the picture? Yeah, I went online. I looked at how to care for a baby squirrel. I did my job as a wildlife rescuer. And I want you to put my photo up there again so you can see my little baby. And of course, because of the day that I was having, I named the squirrel D's, short for D's nuts. And promptly, I mean, almost immediately upon texting this woman, Lana, who was a friend of Meg's, she immediately wrote me back and said, come on over. I'll take the baby. Hurry up. Got in my car, put him in this bin, drove over there, got there, has a beautiful farm. There were goats. I felt really good. I'm like, this squirrel's going to grow up. He's going to live a very, very happy life. And she'll set him free in the woods, and it's all going to be great. And I drop him off. And I get in the car and I back out, and I notice my phone's ringing, and it's her. And I'm thinking, oh, did I forget something? You know, something wrong? You seemed okay. And she's laughing. And she says, yeah, that's not a squirrel. It's a rat.
It looked like a squirrel.
It looks exactly like a squirrel. And apparently I spent a good portion of my afternoon yesterday cuddling with a baby rat. So there you have it, folks. And I thought that this was a really funny message from the universe, from God. There were hawks, mentioned a lot previously in my previous job, and how they were messengers of God. And here yesterday, during this D's nuts fiasco, this hawk drops what I think is a baby squirrel in the lake. My son finds it. I save it from drowning. But at the end of the day, after I drop it off, I find out that it's not a baby squirrel at all. It's a baby rat. And I think that the message here from God is that sometimes in our lives, we bring people in. We think they're cute and cuddly and nice. But sometimes, maybe it's not all it seems. Sometimes even, the cute and cuddly ones can, maybe not be everything that we think. So that was my message. And, we've had a lot of hate at both Ed and I, based on, excelling at what we do professionally. And we've had a lot of shots taken at us over the years that we've worked together. But I want to say, I always appreciate him. He's a ride or die friend. And I judge people based on my experience, based on how they treat me and how I see them treat the people around me. And Kristin Davis, you're a part of our family now. And I want to welcome you to our KED family officially, and to our KED chat and our beautiful show.
Thank you. Well, these nuts aren't always what they seem, was the message there.
Right? It's not always what they seem. And, we've all done it. You bring in people to, do business partnerships with you or collaborations, or, you meet people that's a trusted friend of somebody else, but for some reason you don't vibe, or there's, some agenda that doesn't fit. And I'm not even saying it's always sinister. I'm just saying that sometimes you don't really know what you're dealing with until it's too late and you've snuggled with a baby rat for half the afternoon. So
that is
I think there's
true.
a lot of truth in that. Yeah. So I want to go back to 2016 because, the D's nuts thing brought up for me, the parallels between the debate that's going to be going on, here on Thursday and the debate that took place back in 2016. And one of the things that keeps coming up, Kristin, is Biden fit to even do this? Donald Trump has now asked for a drug test prior to the CNN debate and says he'll take one too. But I have a lot of questions about how HIPAA is going to work in that case. And if it's prescription drugs, is it something that has to be disclosed? So, for example, if Biden was prescribed amphetamines and he doesn't sign a waiver and those are prescribed by a doctor, do those have to be disclosed on the drug test? I don't know. I need to know more. I don't know what our chat thinks about that, but I was probing that last night and thinking about it. And I think you have a clip from 2016, and it's about a minute and a half long, so be patient with it because it's a good one. But it's basically Hillary talking to Donald Trump about stamina.
And I watched the way you talk now about
technical difficulties. Here we go.
And I could tell how much it bothered him and annoyed him that this was being touted and used against him.
First of all, I got to watch in preparing for this some of your debates against Barack Obama. You treated him with terrible disrespect. And I watched the way you talk now about how lovely everything is and how wonderful you are. It doesn't work that way. So when you try to act holier than thou, it really doesn't work. It really doesn't.
You had supported the war in Iraq before the invasion. What makes your judgment?
I did not support the war in Iraq.
2002.
That is a mainstream media nonsense put out by her because she, frankly, I think the best person in her campaign is mainstream media.
My question is, since you
would you like to hear?
Why is your
the war. Wait a minute. I was against the war in Iraq, just so you put it out.
The record shows otherwise.
The record does not show that.
Why is your judgment?
The record shows that I'm right.
Earlier this month, you said she doesn't have, quote, a presidential look. She's standing here right now. What did you mean by that?
She doesn't have the look. She doesn't have the stamina. I said she doesn't have the stamina. And I don't believe she does have the stamina. To be president of this country, you need tremendous stamina.
Well, as soon as he travels to 112 countries and negotiates a peace deal, a ceasefire, a release of dissidents, an opening of new opportunities in nations around the world, or even spends 11 hours testifying in front of a congressional committee, he can talk to me about stamina.
The world.
He can talk to me about stamina. He can talk to me about stamina. That is my favorite part of that entire clip. And she says, he can talk to me when he spends 11 hours testifying. He can talk to me when he negotiates a ceasefire. He can talk to me when he travels to 112 countries. How many things has he done? When is she going to talk to him about this? Do they even remember what they say, Kristin? This is the first debate in 2016. I think they forget that this stuff is recorded.
Well, she certainly had the stamina to delete 30,000+ emails, right? That takes a long time also. So I give her a little credit. She's got some stamina or something going on, because to hide all the things that you're doing against the American public certainly takes resolve and stamina. So
that's amazing. And you led this right into my second clip. I like how you segued us in there. This is really getting to be like a real TV show. Documents and lies. It's a recurring theme. Let's play this next clip.
If only I could just do it seamlessly with the technology portion.
Please allow her to respond. She didn't talk while you talked.
Yes, that's true. I didn't.
Because you
I
have
didn't
nothing
in
to
the
say.
first debate, and I'm going to try not to in this debate because I'd like to get to the questions that the people have brought here tonight to talk to us about.
And get off this question.
Okay, Donald, I know you're into big diversion tonight, anything to avoid talking about your campaign and the way it's exploding and the way Republicans are leaving you. But
Let's
let's at
see what
least
happens
focus
at the
Allow her
on
to
some of
respond.
the
We're going to have to start this clip over.
That's
There has
okay.
never been
I
anything
just
like
want to
it.
say
it's
my
just
favorite
not
part.
true, and so please
you
go
didn't
to
delete him?
Allow her to respond, please.
personal emails, not
Yeah, this is we're having some technical problems.
It's all
here.
good. It's all good. The bottom line is, and you played the part that I wanted to address, is she says his campaign is going to explode, except she means it's going to implode. And it really did explode. The American people, here she is making this point. I'm listening to the people. I'm listening to the people. Well, obviously you weren't, because he won. He won. At the end of the day, none of this mattered because he won. And this was well into the second debate. The second debate is also when he used that stinger. And I won't make you, play any more clips. But we could all remember, just how entertaining the debates are. I'll call it what it is. It's great television. He, was the king of The Apprentice. He has been on TV. He is really good in front of a camera, and he's really good with the zingers. And remember, that was when he said, because you could be in jail.
That is.
It's just awfully good
that was,
someone
can you play it?
with the temperament of Donald Trump. It's just awfully good that someone with the temperament of Donald Trump is not in charge of the law in our country.
Because you'd be in jail.
Secretary Clinton.
I feel like that one needs to just go on repeat. And I'm hopeful that, after 2024, some of these people will be in jail.
We can only hope, it's a hard road. Look at how Donald Trump has been persecuted and prosecuted. This is really interesting how just whittled away our DOJ and our justice system is at this point. Is it going to take more than 4 years of Donald Trump being president to rebuild it? A lot of people think yes. But I think what's really interesting this morning in this prediction about JD Vance is that a breath of fresh air for a lot of people. I wonder what our chat thinks, that he's bringing in potentially somebody who's younger, somebody who has an amazing relationship with Don Jr., who we all know has publicly stated that he's not going to run, and who has told me personally that he has no interest in doing it several times when I've probed him. But, at the end of the day, having JD Vance, who's someone who's got Donald Trump Jr.'s ear, is that going to be important to move this country forward? Is it the next generation? Is it the Trump children that are going to be a part of the American legacy? And I'm not saying Trump legacy, because it's more than that. It's our legacy. It's the legacy of America, Kristin.
Well, I certainly like him as VP. I think one of the main issues across the board is the age of the candidates, right? So I think if from my perspective, looking at this, having done campaigns before, I'd be looking to address some of the issues that are going on. And that's a big issue, is, the mental capabilities of the candidates due to their age. So putting in someone who's younger, who's fresh, who's already a proven warrior is a fantastic idea. So
yeah, fantastic idea for sure. We need warriors. I don't know. I'm looking at the chat and I got distracted for a second because Insider myself says, and I don't know if you know about this, Kristin, says temperament ? Hillary threw a $99,000 bottle of champagne. I didn't even know there was a $99,000 bottle of champagne that existed. Through a 100-inch TV screen at a hotel. Is this true? I mean, this is in the chat. I'm not going to say that this is true. And then the staff were throwing chafing dishes of food around, that she had some sort of a temper tantrum in a hotel that involved very expensive champagne and a TV screen. And Denise says, yeah, I remember watching this happen. Do you remember this, Kristen? How did I miss this?
No, I need some links to where can we see
I
this?
know. I do too. And then that Red Ginger is saying that Hillary also threw a book at a state trooper's head in Arkansas. She threw a vase at Bill Clinton. I mean, this is what our chat is saying. Again, I'm not, not saying that these are all completely accurate, but there's always a little bit of truth in everything. A little bit. Sometimes it's just a grain. Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of talk.
I mean, I could see her throwing things and being temperamental. I wouldn't put it past her. I personally would throw a 99,000 bottle of champagne. I want to drink it, but this just goes to show you how much money and how much they don't care about what things cost, right?
Why is it so hard to say $99,000 bottle of champagne? It's a tongue twister. I got it right that time, but I heard you sort of make a little mistake that I made. It's actually a tongue twister. $99,000 is a tongue twister. You know who's dropping about $500,000, Kristen? We didn't talk about this story yet, but Julian Assange is going to run away.
And I thought a lot about this because a couple of my clients are very big on free speech. One of my clients, BitChute, they just interviewed Assange's brother, and it was a great interview over on BitChute. And I've thought a lot about him and why now. And I'm gonna just put my money on the fact that Biden is gonna use this in the debates. If it was me, I would be looking for things I could throw in Trump's face, and he's going to say, I'm the one who released him in the debates coming up. Because why now? Why this week? Why all of a sudden?
Oh, Kristen, I didn't think of any of that. I thought of it more of reinventing the same narrative, this sort of narrative about corruption and this and that, and bringing in the old characters, because it's easier to recycle a character and bring somebody in. I mean, I hate to say that it's that simple, but a lot of times, and maybe this is because I grew up being sort of a drama geek in high school and a theater kid, but it's also scripted to me that when I look at it and I see them reemerge these players, these characters, I always say, well, it fits the script. So with Julian Assange, for me, heating up going into 2024, it fit the script, international espionage, and now he's sort of walking free, but he's not. And it just seems to me like the media is, again, pushing him forward in order to match an agenda that they want to push.
It might be a bit of both, right?
I actually like your theory. I think my theory isn't as good as your theory. I'm going to go with your theory. And I also want to talk about the other headline that I missed, that I'm going to go down the rabbit hole tomorrow on this, but who remembers David? Who in our chat, I want to say, and I'm just going to say the name David. Who remembers David? And I'll give you guys a minute to answer that. And in the meantime, I'm curious, Kristen, did you get your lien?
I haven't checked my mail
about a week. Very honest. Again, bringing the honesty this morning. I also have not gone to my mailbox in probably 4 days, but now that we've talked about it on the show, I'm going to do it. And maybe you'll get your liens today, because if you are looking to lose weight, and I know we have a lot of people in our chat that are struggling, that are working out. I've struggled with my weight on and off throughout my life. You don't want to do the weekly shots. You're not ready to do Ozempic. It seems really drastic, especially these days where, I don't know, I'm afraid to put any kind of shot in my body. I don't know about everybody else. And lean isn't really for the casual dieter, but the doctors at Brickhouse Nutrition have created this to really be a solution that in some ways can be comparable with some of these injectable drugs. So you can get 15% off and rush shipping. No harm in trying it before you take drastic measures, right? You go to leanvnn.com and enter VNN for your 15% discount. Promo code VNN at leanvnn.com. So yeah, check your mailbox today, Kristen. I'll check mine too. And I'm actually waiting for something really exciting to be delivered that's going to be here next Tuesday for Tuesday's show. And I know everybody in the chat is going to remember the Talking Jesus doll because it's a classic and we've had it on the show many, many times. And I've bought one for my granddaughter and some other kids in my life. But now David Morrow, who is the inventor of the Talking Jesus doll, has a talking Trump doll. And we are going to unveil it Tuesday on the show. And he's going to come say hello to all of us. So really looking forward to that. And he's not the David that I tease. So before you jump on me in the chat and said, oh, she meant David Morrow, I didn't mean David Morrow. Do we know of the David that I speak? Let's see. I don't know. Nobody in the chat's answering me on this. I'm talking about David, who is Nancy Pelosi's husband's friend, the very mysterious David, Hammer David. It's hammer time. Do we remember that? Because it kind of went away. Remember, it was a crazy story about a man that might have been her husband's friend. And, you know, I want to first and foremost say it's never good when somebody gets hurt. Obviously, this was a horrific attack. And, you know, we had prayers for Paul. And, you know, I don't want to make too much light on it. But I also want to bring up the fact that Nancy is full of it, always. And now has come forward and sort of addressed this attack and tried to shift the narrative. So yesterday there's this headline that says, Nancy Pelosi delivers blistering 5-word Trump prediction. And basically she goes into the fact that we all had rhetoric after this incident and we all talked about this sounds a little cuckoo nuts. And basically now she's saying, of course, that her husband was hurt and that Donald Trump bashed her personally and this was a horrible break-in and this and that. And she said this, of course, to Anderson Cooper, no surprise. And he's about 80% recovered. So God bless him. I'm glad that he's recovered. But what's really nuts about it is the fact that, you know, here we are. We still know nothing about what actually happened. We only know what Nancy Pelosi's telling us. The media completely went dark on this nutso story. Where is David now? Whatever happened? Were they friends? So I think tomorrow on our Wednesday Wonderland Rabbit Hole, I'm going to answer some of those questions.
Oh, I'm looking forward to hearing the truth. Let's go.
I mean, I don't know if I can actually find the truth, but I'll have a good time going down the rabbit hole and potentially finding the leads that will get us to the truth. I think the truth is going to be really hard to find when the name Pelosi's involved.
Well, you know, they cover up their own misdeeds. And when you have the power to do so, and that's when it becomes very scary.
It does. But you know what? No fear here. We're going to get on with our day. I'm going to try not to rescue any more baby animals today. I'm going to try to keep my day nice and calm. And maybe I don't know. I might even put my phone on silent for a while and take a break today. I think that might be in the cards for me, Kristen.
I spent like 10 hours on D's Nuts yesterday. So I'm there with you, Karyn.
There you go. You know, D's nuts matter, I guess. I guess that's the bottom line. I'll wrap up the show with that. D's nuts matter. And here we are.
We'll see you tomorrow.
All right, see you tomorrow, Patriots.